Hello, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to our session titled Spirituality in Mosques. Um, Sorry for the short delay today. I'm very honored to be moderating this session. My name is Anas Lahmain. I am an assistant professor at the Department of Architecture, College of Architecture at Kuwait University. Spirituality and mosques sounds like a topic definitely under my interests of research, and so I'm very happy to be moderating this session. I believe initially this was scheduled for 4 speakers. We might have only 2 with us today. I will nonetheless present the 4 speakers, and just to give a quick guidelines for these sessions, and then inshallah we'll start with the different talks. So our first speaker will be Siti Delilah Maud Sojak, from a PhD student from the University of Technology in Malaysia. Siti Delilah is a PhD student from University of Technology in Malaysia and a researcher in the field of ornamentation in mosque architecture in Malaysia as well. Her research is titled Implementation, or her paper is titled Implementation of Islamic Values and Principles on Contemporary Mosque Ornamentations. The second speaker will be Yasir Migahid. He's an educator, researcher, and a practitioner. He's a senior lecturer at the Welsh School of Architecture and an associate architect at Design Office, Newcastle, shortlisted for the RIBA Northeast Award in 2019. He has also been selected for the AG Architects Journal magazine's prestigious award 40 Under 40 in 2020. His paper is titled, Is the Mosque a Male Dedicated Building? A Critical View on Women Praying Space in Contemporary Mosque Design. We also have 2 other speakers who will be presenting in Arabic. I'm not sure if they'll join us later or we'll have time to meet them. Nonetheless, I'll just give a quick introduction to what their papers are. The first one is by Ibrahim bin Yusuf. عنوان البحث هو دور شبكات التجارة في انتقال الفنون والعمارة في بلاد الإسلام، عمارة المعادن نموذج. البرزنتر الأخير هو عباس علي حمزة الروائي، وتايتل عنوان بحثه هي استراتيجية السرد في عمارة المساجد المعاصرة ما بين النظرية والتطبيق. We'll start with Ms. Delilah, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. So welcome, and we'll have 10 to 12 minutes each presentation, but since we're not sure about the rest, we might have a little bit of extra time. We'll end all sessions with Q&A. And for now, just I'd like to ask you to put your phones on silent, please. And go ahead, please. You can start presenting.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. I am Siti Delilah. I'm from Malaysia. So I'm going to present about my research paper today, entitled Implementation of Islamic Values and Principles on Contemporary Mosque Ornamentation. Ornament is considered as a main part in Islamic architecture. Ornament plays a role in Islamic spirituality and tawhid, so it is not only an element added to the building surface, it has a clear and definite functions. So mosque during the prophets was very plain and simple without ornamentation. But nowadays, mosque was mostly built with excessive ornamentation, making beautification became a major factor compared to the functional purpose of the mosque. So this excessive ornamentation is considered can sometimes surpass the construction cost and can be categorized as waste. So these are some examples mosques in Malaysia that taken architecture from the Grand Mosque that's considered excessive and embellished. So this research paper aims to contextualize the aspect of Islamic ornamentation design principles by emphasizing Islamic beliefs as the foundation for creating balance and purposeful mosque ornamentation. So, from the perspective of contemporary ornament, the modern architecture has now go beyond decorating. Contemporary ornament has become a tool for expression and cultural reflectance. The advanced technology and the digital revolution contribute to linking structure with the aesthetic values. So there are some application of the contemporary ornaments such as surface effects. It can be part of the structure or load-bearing elements. It also can link ornaments to the digital applications. So from the perspective of Islamic Sharia, the Quran and Hadith mention a rule for decorating. Quran and Hadith mention that moderation ornament is lawful, but the Prophet, peace be upon him, firmly condemned inappropriate decoration, but did not condemn the idea of decoration and beautification. Especially the mihrab niche should be less decorated so that it's not disturb the people's prayer. So there are four main elements or motifs in Islamic ornamentations, which is calligraphy, digital, geometry, and figurative. The calligraphy and geometry is considered as the most prominent motif in the Islamic art. The geometry is considered as the most universal and abstract design form. So there are four main ornament functions, which is as a reminder of Tawhid, as a transfiguration of structures, transfiguration of materials, and also for beautifications. So these elements and motifs were composed by five basic design principle, which is the principle of unity, the principle of eternity, abstraction, recurrence and rhythm, and also the symmetry. The principle of unity is basically a concept of Tawhid, or Allah is one. The principle of eternity is defined as the endless state of God existence, or it has no limitations in the design. The principle of abstraction is the reinterpretation of the image into other image. The principle of recurrence and rhythm is basically like the giving the three-dimensional effects to the ornament. And lastly, the principle of symmetry is to give the balance to the artwork. So the study is going through a thematic content analysis through the literature review on mosque ornamentation by study the definitions of the ornament, the formal qualities and the principles of ornament, and the study found 7 Islamic values consist in the ornamentation, which is devoted, moderation, beneficial, harmony, honor, cleanliness, and progression. So this is the relationship between ornamentation and Islamic values. So study found that the formal qualities and principles is actually associated to the Islamic values. Formal qualities consist of motifs, materials, colors, and techniques. For example, the motif geometry consists of principle of unity, eternity, repetition, symmetry, and abstraction. These principles lead to the 5 Islamic values, which is devoted, moderation, beneficial, harmony, and honor. So to add more values to the ornament, the choosing of materials, colors, and techniques also can lead add more values to the ornament, such as the choosing of the natural color and soft will lead to the moderation values and also the cleanliness. So this table shows the characteristic and formal qualities of ornamentation based on Islamic values. So these tables can be as a design guideline in designing ornamentation based on Islamic values. I think the most important values to add in the design ornamentation is the beneficial ornament, because having beneficial values meaning having a good meaning of ornament, and also added function of ornament, such as besides having a good aesthetic values, ornament also must have a good function such as ventilation, lighting, facade treatment, safety, privacy, spiritual, and also cleanliness. One of the characteristic for having beneficial is not causing any difficulties in the future. So other values that also important is the values of moderation, so that the ornamentation could be stay in very simple and modest, so that the ornamentation does not interfere with the prayers and avoid wasteful and extravagant and excessive ornament. So with the values of honor, by the application of motif must have a meaning that the symbolic meaning of honor or love, and also the characteristic of ornament is not an expression of arrogance, and also not excessively ornamented until it show arrogance. To summarize, the study is to appreciate the Islamic values consist in the Quran and Hadith for a true and beneficial Islamic ornamentation, which is simplicity, moderation, beneficial, harm avoidance, cleanliness, and harmony. I'm giving some example from Malaysian mosques, which is National Mosque Malaysia and Damansara Mosque in Malaysia. The ornamentation applies the geometrical elements in the sense of Malay Islamic aspirations. It also applies a screen wall facade treatment, which has function as ventilation and also natural lighting that gives impact to the space, and also give impact to the aesthetic values. So the use of the soft and natural color give effect of simplicity and modest appearance. Another example is from the Radio Hadith Fisabilillah Mosque. The arabesque motif of the external facade promotes natural lighting, ventilation, and glare treatment over the spill area, and also the internal dome gives natural lighting over the main prayer hall. So this integration of the ornament between aesthetic and functional added value to the beauty of the buildings by testify to the surrounding technology and civilization. By this integration, ornament can fulfill all roles as spirituality, beautification, semiotics, and also ecology. So as a conclusion, mosque and ornamentation are connected to each other by physically, spiritually, and ecologically, adjoining by the principle of Islam, meaning that most ornamentation are acceptable if it provides with the functional ornamentation. The concept of Islamic principle should result to the innovation of mosque design, especially in the contemporary world. Thus, by implementing both functional and spiritual values on mosque ornamentation, the more it will benefit the whole community of Islam. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia, for a beautiful presentation. If you can hold with us for the next presentation, hopefully we will have some Q&A after the second presentation. So please remain with us online. Thank you. And now with Yasir Mugahad and his presentation.
Thank you for your introduction and welcome everyone. And I think the topic kind of have some hints with a majority of female audience today with us in this presentation. So, my topic is kind of a provocative question. Is the mosque a male dedicated building? Right? So when we look at contemporary approaches to mosque design, we'll find a display of kind of richness in expressing the visual and expressing the sacred in kind of Islamic culture and religion. But still some foundational questions about the process of mosque design, particularly those related to the dynamic functionality and the different users in the mosque, hasn't been tackled enough. A key question that I'm kind of posing here is regarding the women praying space in contemporary mosque. Usually when we talk about mosque architecture, when we show images of mosque, we show this image, an image of a main praying hall. Usually, if it has kind of some people praying, kind of aside from the architectural habit of not kind of putting people in images in general, but you will find it the kind of the luxurious main double height spatial praying room with male kind of worshipper praying. But the other side of the mosque is this one, where the women are usually kind of hidden behind. This is kind of leading to a question if we are both having the same design and spatial experience for both users of the same space that are going into the mosque. While there are kind of regional variations regarding the kind of the women praying space, but usually it's kind of a screened space, either in the back of the mosque or in kind of in a basement or a mezzanine, usually smaller in scale and size from the main praying hall. And it's not very clear where this tradition started to come and become kind of the accepted and expected practice in contemporary mosque architecture. But in a way, this has become the for-granted way of thinking about women praying space. Ask any architect designing a mosque, they immediately will put a small space, usually in the mezzanine, and saying, this is for women. It's an easy answer, and just go on with the design. But the prevalence of those kind of, we can call architectural habits or tradition, have sparked various religious jurisprudential kind of questions about the place of women in the mosque and in Islam in general, and also a lot of socio-political debates about the role of women in Islam, in the bigger idea of inclusivity, and are women and men equal in Islam or not. So there are a lot of divided and scattered kind of literature about this topic. But kind of mainly in the last 10 years, you will find that, especially from Islamic feminist approaches, you will find a lot of push about questioning this kind of space for kind of the women in the mosque. But aside from all of this, which is kind of more religious literature, more of, as I'm saying, socio-political literature, the architectural question here is different. We are part of this kind of dilemma, but it's not our problem. Our problem is that we have a user for this building that we haven't appreciated or fulfilled their needs. But it's uneasy to find data and information about the women praying space and the evolution of this space in general. And I kind of started to dig kind of deep a little bit to find where exactly this tradition came from, how exactly we started to have this type of isolated place for the women in the mosque. Going back, and I'm just saying from now, it's a very fragmented chronology. There are not enough evidence to kind of show a linear kind of history or evolution of the mosque space. But the beginning is from the mosque of Prophet Muhammad in Medina, where the idea was both men and women were in the same space. Men are behind in rows, kind of lined up in rows behind the imam from the front, while women are in the back of them without barrier or screen. And it was some kind of, both of them are seeing both are seeing each other in the same space, but with what you can say a little bit of a void barrier between them, but not a real kind of barrier. This tradition kept going on from in the time after Prophet. So you can see some kind of, at the time of the companions of the Prophet, the same tradition was there. Women were praying behind men in the mosque space. Although there are, especially in the Umayyad time, some evidence, anecdotal evidence, saying that some authoritative figure like Ibn Mas'ud, for example, started to say, kind of disagree with the idea that women and men are not segregated in the mosque. But still, the habit stayed the same. There are a lot of evidence saying women were instructors in the mosque, they were praying and attending ceremonies. The same continued in the 7th and 8th century in the Umayyad kind of time. And then the same anecdotal evidence say the same tradition was in the Mosque of Samarra, the Grand Mosque of Samarra in Iraq under the Caliph Al-Mu'tasim, Abbasid time. The same in the Great Mosque of Kairouan, the same in Egypt, in Al-Azhar Mosque, in different mosques in kind of before this, in the Fustat time, in Ibn Tuwan. All of them are still having the same anecdotal evidence that it was the same habit of being behind men and women praying in the same space. And you can find this also in the Ayyubid and Mamluk time in mosques and madrasa, that still the idea of separating them doesn't have a very solid evidence to kind of support. But one of the first kind of evidence that there was a dedicated women's space can be seen in some reports from the expansion of the Prophet's Mosque under Al-Mahdi Caliph, kind of in the around, I think, the 8th century, where there was a dedicated mosque space called Saqifat al-Nisa, or Women's Arcade, in the back of the courtyard in the 5th extension of the Prophet's Mosque. Also, there was some reports that in the Great Mosque of Cordoba, that there was a place called Al-Maqsura, and the kind of the word Maqsura means a bit the idea of restriction, and that was in the back of the kind of the mosque as well. But as the scholar Marian Katz kind of argue, this wasn't kind of a habit, and in a way it was a bit controversial to have this type of designated space for the mosque at this time. Moving on, we'll find some evidence in the Seljukian kingdom in the 11th century saying that the Great Mosque of Asfahan has construction of a domed space dedicated for women, but it was kind of connected to the wife of the Sultan, Malak Shah, called Turkan Khatun, where it seems that this space was dedicated for her for more of a security reason than kind of a dedication for kind of a dedicated women's space. Another of those scattered evidence is coming from India in the Mosque of Gujarat, where in the Gujarat state, the Mosque of Jami Mosque and Rajapur Mosque, there was what is called Zinena, or you can call the women arcade or the women gallery, which was some kind of a screen space dedicated to women around the 15th century. And it became the habit of most of the Muslim mosques in Bangladesh, in India, and later in Pakistan as well. But another researcher, Zia Salam, kind of argued as well that this tradition stopped later, especially under the British kind of rule of India, where there was kind of a ban for women to attend to mosque. Sometimes this is dedicated for more authoritative or kind of orthodox way of seeing Islam and seeing that women should not attend to the mosque in general. But as I'm saying, this is not a linear chronology. It differs from one region to another. There are not enough evidence to support exactly what happened. But what we can see is, from the beginning of the 20th century, this has become some kind of the accepted recipe for the design of the mosque. Women should be segregated. They should be segregated in a different space, either on the top of the mosque or on the kind of the basement, and there should be a screen barrier. The other thing is the kind of, if you compare this tradition with this fragmented kind of chronology, you will find that there was oppositely three traditions. One of them mosque is an open plan space where men and women are praying in the same area without a screen or a barrier, or they are dedicated to a certain space which was controversial in some time, or they were banned completely in some kind of spaces. But this will lead us to more of the contemporary kind of guidelines for mosque architecture, because building on this very scattered and fragmented history, you will find that we have a clear guideline saying in most of those kind of, and I'll try to make some kind of a collage of different guidelines from different areas in the kind of Muslim land, and you will find that usually you have three things in those regarding the women praying space. One of them, segregation and visual separation. The second is about the size of the space, which usually starts from 5% of the male praying area, or in a very rare, generous time, it was 40% of it. And the other thing is related to segregated access and facilities and so on. And this, as I'm saying, has become the main habit of most of architects when they are designing mosque for women, kind of praying space for women, they are following this exact tradition. For the sake of the time, I'll just kind of skim through some kind of patterns in a sample of contemporary mosque architecture. And I wanted to take you in, you can say, a comparison between the male experience and the female experience in those mosques. So, when you are looking at those, you will find it's kind of very varied samples that I'm using. And the reason for that is I want to show how, even with varied kind of region, with varied approaches to mosque, it seems the same pattern about kind of women praying space. So, for example, I'll start with Al-Aziz Mosque in the UAE, and it was built in 2016, kind of a common traditional mosque with kind of a clear, strong image, about kind of an iconic way of seeing the mosque. And we are moving on to the male experience. So if you look at the screen, this is the ground floor plan. Male users will start climbing up those stairs, elevating to the field that we are going up, going to meet God through worshipping, and through a threshold experience going from those elevated stairs, going up to the sky, going through kind of triple height arcade, and then to the main porch of the mosque, then opening the doors of the mosque, going axially and directly to the main praying hall, which is triple height. And this is kind of where you have left the remaining kind of worldly and mundane experience of the outside, and now you are going to the inside of the mosque, kind of to meet God according to Islamic tradition. Let's move and see the women experience. First of all, women will not come from this axial kind of approach. They are coming from the side. They don't have any transition or an actual threshold from the outside to the inside. They directly come from the side to this staircase, which actually acts as an entrance lobby, acts as a landing for the stair, and kind of a space for the lift as well, a landing for the lift. Around, if it's kind of, from my calculation, I say it's 1.5 meters wide. They need to climb up those stairs for kind of almost 3 floors to go to that level of the mezzanine. And coming then from the side, kind of not actually in any way, to the main space for the women praying hall, which is almost 20% of the male praying hall, not part of the domed space or the main experience of the kind of the space. And also, I want to kind of take you a little bit to an experience of a female user here, who wants, for example, have a very everyday thing like ablution, for example, if you want to perform wudu. She will need to go down, climb those at least 7 flights of, or to 8 flights of stairs to go to the basement to go for the wudu facilities. Then she needs to climb up the same stairs, going up to this smaller space. Another thing, you can imagine people using the lift, people are going up, people are going down. This is a really crowded space. I don't think in any way this is what we kind of architects try to claim as the experience that you are trying to design for user when you compare it to the male user. The other thing is, maybe I'll talk about it. The other thing, you can see that usually it's a habit, especially in kind of a lot of Arabic countries, that the responsibility for kids in the mosque is usually with women. And if you imagine that this is a very small space having crowded lady prayer, kind of worshippers, and also kid, it's not an amazing experience to design for those type of users. I'll skip some of these, and I want to show this example from Al-Rawda Mosque in Jordan, where you can see the experience from the outside again, climbing up through the ramp with a clear alcove for the entrance approach, a bent entrance, then changing your direction, feeling that there is a chain from the outside to the inside, dedicated to the domed space, centrally and axially here. Let's see the women praying space. Coming from around the mosque to a very small enclave, to a side entrance that looks like a service entrance, to, again, to a stair climbing up about 4 flights, leading to an experience of a women praying space from the side of the main hall. They do not actually experience the luxurious and spatial kind of quality of this space. I'll skim to a final one now, which is a very kind of award-winning mosque where in Turkey, well, you will find this idea of creating this underground experience of a cave-like kind of praying space. It's had a lot of awards. You can find the kind of the contrast between the minimalist interior and the exterior that is very rough. The male experience going down until entering from this entry space, going down those steps and have this wide, luxurious, minimalist space contrasted with calligraphy from the side. In comparison, this is the women praying space. It's kind of marginalized on the side, and on the other hand, it's completely outside the spatial experience of this kind of luxurious space created here. And because this is one of the award kind of winning mosques, I want you to imagine now, when we are giving awards to mosques, we usually put the hall, the male praying hall, comparing it to other male praying hall, and usually with the iconic kind of visual language of the mosque and so on, awards are being given. But if we compared mosques in terms of the women praying spaces, I don't think any of these mosques will take any awards. And this, in a way, is saying something about our priorities in architecture. Is it about the sculpture and the nice kind of glossy photographs of the mosque, or the actual use and uses of the mosque? I kind of, because of the time, I'll need to kind of finish with, this is very interesting kind of caricature from a Pakistani artist who, away from all of this dilemma, we have amazing mosques, contemporary mosque architecture is developing and improving. And this is the experience of a lady trying to find the mosque, the women praying space. And the guy who's trying to help her, after a lot of conversation, the only way was to draw a map for her to tell her how to go to the mosque praying space, or the women praying space in this mosque. And I think the main thing that I'm trying to say here is our role as architects is not in that kind of the dilemma of where is the place of the women in the mosque from a religious point of view, or the socio-political point of view from a feminist kind of approach. But mainly we have a user here, and it's about the equality of design. We are creating a state of inequality here between different users of the same space, and we are responsible for that. And I think with kind of many of, as I'm saying, female audience with us, there is an area, a very clear gap in knowledge in this kind of space. Well, that, as I'm saying, trying to find resources was very uneasy, especially for a male scholar. And I think there are a lot of primary data that need to be collected. It seems from my talk that I'm talking about segregation in general, but it's not actually the question, because it looks like the easy answer is just make it like the original Mosque of Prophet Muhammad, where men and women are in the same space. But it's not that easy as it seems. With kind of some limited surveys that have been done with women users, they started to ask them, are you happy with the segregation or not? And there are mixed messages about the answer. Some of them started to talk about privacy and feeling kind of more protected in their spaces. Some other felt that why you are putting us in an unequal position to men, we have the same value to be with them. I'll end with this, and I'm just asking all the scholars, the female scholars, now to step on, and it became your kind of take the responsibility now. There is a possibility of changing this, and it's our responsibility as architects all to think about all the users of the space. Apologies for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yasser, for an exciting and truly amazing and important presentation. I'm not sure if we have Dr. Ibrahim bin Yusuf with us, or perhaps couldn't make it. So we'll do our last presenter. Dr. Abbas Ali. قدمناكم في بداية البرزنتيشن، بس حياكم الله. البرزنتيشن راح يكون بالعربي. تفضل. حياكم الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه الغر المنتجبين. أستاذ دكتور عباس القريشي من هندسة العمارة الجامعة التكنولوجية في بغداد العراق. معي زميلاتي أستاذ مساعد الدكتور شمال الدباغ وأستاذ مساعد الدكتور زينب العبيدي. بداية نتقدم بشكرنا الجزيل لرعاة هذا المحفل العلمي الكبير متمثلا بجامعة الكويت وجائزة عبد اللطيف الفوزان لعمارة المساجد. لإتاحة الفرصة للمشاركة بورقة بحثية عنوانها السردية استراتيجية السرد في عمارة المساجد المعاصرة ما بين النظرية والتطبيق. الطرح مالتنا باختلاف عن الطروحات اللي موجودة خلال طلعنا على البروشور تبع المؤتمر، يخص الثيوري والعلاقة في استراتيجيات التصميم بين الاستراتيجيات الأدبية من النقد الأدبي والاستراتيجيات التصميمية المعمارية. تمحورت فكرة البحث عبر التوجه لدراسة السرد كاستراتيجية تصميمية وما يتوافق مع توجهات العمارة الداعية للانفتاح على الحقول المختلفة. أغلب الطروحات المعمارية المرتبطة باستراتيجيات التصميم في الوقت الحالي أو الوقت المعاصر هو الانفتاح على حقول البناء الشعري، البناء القصصي، البناء الروائي، حتى في علوم الاجتماع وعلوم السياسة وباقي المفاهيم اللي تتطلب آليات لخلق احنا نسميه النص المعماري. كلمة النص أفضل من المشروع وأفضل من كلمة الإنتاج، كون النص هو قابل للقراءة والتأويل عبر الزمن. فإذا كان في النص القصصي أو النص الروائي الكلمة هي عبارة عن شكل، فالشكل في المعماري هو كلمة، بمعنى كلاهما يحمل معنى. الفرق في آليات الإنتاج. الروائي يعتمد على المكان والزمان والشخوص وطبيعة العلاقات والأحداث اللي ينتجها بين هذه الشخوص، ويبني أو ينسج روايته على مجموعة آليات مختلفة. الشخوص اللي يتعامل وياها المهندس المعماري، إذا أقصد المصمم المعماري، هي الأشكال وطبيعة العلاقة بين هذه الأشكال بما تحمله من معاني تجسد رؤياه الفكرية والفلسفية لإنتاج النص النهائي مع تثبيت المكان. محور دراستنا اليوم هو حول عمارة المساجد. لا نرجع دكتور. منهج البحث اعتمد على الجانبين، الجانب النظري والجانب التطبيقي. بالجانب النظري عندنا السرد وسردية العمارة. إذا كانت عملية بناء تقوم على تبني قصة أو حدث ما وتجسيدها بمجموعة من الإشارات اللي هي قلنا التصورات الشكلية أو العلامات اللغوية لحالتها لتكون نصا. النص ما هو المشروع المعماري بتوظيف آليات سردية احنا ننتقيها من مستقاة أو منتقات من تقنيات الروائيين والقصص، بمعنى أنه على المصمم المعماري المعاصر أن ينفتح على طريقة بناء الرواية من قبل القاص أو الروائي لكي يستلهم أو يترجم آليات للتعامل مع هذه الأشكال المعمارية. سردية العمارة تعتمد على تجربة الفضاء السردي وترتبط بطبيعة العلاقة بين الحقيقة والخيال من خلال لحظة الإدراك اللي هي احنا نسميها لحظة الانغمار في قراءة حكاية ذلك الفضاء أو قراءة ما ورائية ذلك الفضاء. فالعمارة فن سردي ناقل للرسائل وراوي للقصص، وعملية التصميم بمثابة الفعل السردي، حيث يتم إنشاء التجربة السردية من خلال التفاعل بين ذلك الفضاء وتداعيات وخبرات وتفسيرات المتلقي أو المؤول. احنا نقول طبعا بالعمارة الحديثة الفورم فولو فانكشن، تمام درستوها كطلبة عمارة، وفيما بعد الحداثة يقال بأنه الفانكشن فولو فورم، وهكذا جاء تفكيك لغة هذا الموضوع الديكونستركشن. هسه اللي مصدر العمارة المعاصرة انه الفورم فولو ناريشن، بمعنى الشكل يتبع سرديته، كأنما سرديته هنا مبنية على طبيعة صنعة ذلك الشكل، كيف صنع وما يريد أن يقوله ذلك الشكل. فإحنا نشتغل على المبنى الحكائي والمبنى الدلالي بنفس الوقت. المبنى الحكائي اللي حامل لسردية ذلك الفضاء. يتحقق الامتداد ضمن مفهوم السردية من خلال الامتداد بصورة فيزيائية، هاي اللي احنا نسميه الدفق الفضائي، والامتداد الدلالي أو المتخيل على المستويين الزماني والمكاني اللي هو التواجد ضمن مكان وزمان آخر. ودائما احنا نقول لكل فضاء قصة، حتى المبنى اللي هو بسيط جدا يمتلك، يمكن هسه اذا نقول قسم هندسة العمارة في جامعة الكويت، انا ما شايف الحقيقة، بس اتوقع اذا كان بسيط جدا هو يمتلك آلاف القصص من خلال العلاقات، طبيعة العلاقات اللي تشكلت بين شاغلي ذلك المبنى اللي يجي بعد 10 سنوات أو 20 سنة يمكن تجمعنا لمجموع منظومة الذكريات. فالهدف هو حفر ذكريات في ذهنية المتلقي، والفضاء اللي مستهدف في هذا المؤتمر هو المسجد اللي هو ذهنية المصلي. فالمفاهيم الثانوية لتحقيق الامتداد الدلالي أو المتخيل ضمن الفضاء هو الفضاء الروحاني والملجأ أو الملاذ. الملاذ طبعا لروح المصلي وطبيعة الطابع الموظف ضمن الفضاء. الهدف من الجانب النظري أنه هو الكشف عن طبيعة العلاقة بين السرد كاستراتيجية إنتاج للنص المعماري المعاصر وتأثيرها على صياغة التصورات الدلالية والشكلية لأبنية المساجد. نريد نخرج بمنظومة تصورات شكلية لمنظومة للمساجد كنصوص معمارية أو كنوع وظيفي معماري يختلف عما يتم التعامل مع المسجد على أنه فقط فضاء للصلاة وإداء فريضة من فرائض الدين الإسلامي. توظيف السرد في تصميم الفضاء الداخلي يؤثر على ما يدركه ويستشعره المتلقي من خلال حركته الجسدية ضمن الفضاء وإثارة جميع حواسه مساهما في ارتقائه الروحاني. فممكن تشتغل عندنا حاسة الشم، ممكن تشتغل يعني نشتم بخور أو عطر معين موجودة، وممكن تشتغل حاسة وأكيد راح تشتغل حاسة السمع بالإضافة إلى حاسة البصر من خلال تلقيه لمفردات تبناها المصمم عبر التصورات الشكلية المستحضرة من مراجع قد تكون مختلفة، كما في شغل دكتور محمد مكية الله يرحمه جامع الدولة الكبير، يعني جمع بين الثقافة الأندلسية والثقافة الخليجية ضمن حتى على مستوى الزخارف لإيصال رؤية هو متبنيها ويسردها ضمن هذا المشروع. المنظومة السردية في عمارة المساجد على مستويين مشتغلات. عندنا مستويات المنظومات اللي هي الشكلية والفكرية الدلالية، وطبيعة العوامل المؤثرة على المنظومة السردية، العوامل الروحية، العوامل العقائدية، العوامل الحضارية، والعوامل التكنولوجية. العوامل الروحية أظن بس استرسل أوضحها أكثر. الروحية اللي هي طبيعة التقاء روح المصمم ضمن فضاء المصلى، هاي عند كل الطوائف. العقائدية تختلف من مذهب إلى آخر ضمن الدين الإسلامي، وتتوحد ضمن أداء فريضة الحج، فريضة الصلاة. الحضارية هاي تختلف من بنية مجتمعية إلى بنية مجتمعية أخرى. يعني من أنا يشتغل سردية قصصية معينة لمسجد في دولة خليجية تختلف عن دولة إسلامية مثلا فقيرة حضاريا أو حتى فقيرة ماديا على البعد الاقتصادي. التكنولوجيا هي طبيعة توظيف المصمم المعماري للتكنولوجيا المعاصرة، ومواد التكنولوجيا مثلا مواد نانوية غير اللي توجد في ذلك العصر اللي يشتغل به المصمم المعماري. المسجد فضاء ذو إمكانات سردية كامنة يستند على وجود الفجوات. طبعا للمصلين هناك فجوات اللي هم طبعا المتلقين المستهدفين، فجوات مهنية بين المهن المختلفة، يعني كل المهن يقدرون ضمن فضاء الصلاة. فجوات مجتمعية بين مجموعات مختلفة من المصلين، يعني طبقات مجتمعية مختلفة تجمعهم فريضة واحدة وعلى نفس السطر مال المصلين أو الصف. فجوات جغرافية بين المواقع المختلفة، هاي تخص المصمم للعناصر الشكلية المتبنات من قبل المصمم. فقد الرؤية مالت المصمم تستوجب استحضار تصورات شكلية مثلا تنتمي للحضارة السومرية أو تنتمي للحضارة المصرية البابلية، ويستحضرها في نص شكلي موجود ضمن دولة الكويت اللي هو المسجد الجديد اللي يريد يشتغل عليه لإيصال رؤية معينة. وفجوات زمنية بين الحاضر والماضي للمصمم المعماري، القدرة على القفز عبر الزمن وانتقاء تصورات شكلية حسب ما تبتغيه فكرته المعمارية في تبني أشكال تنتمي لسياقات زمنية مختلفة للتعبير عن أو تجسيد فكرته اللي يريد يوصلها، اللي احنا نسميه رؤياه الحكائية اللي يريد يحكيها. طبعا من الدراسات السابقة اللي اعتمدنا عليها بالبحث The Tale of the Tale Detail لماركو فراسكاري، والسينوغرافي in Museum Design للباحثة الأمريكية جينيفر جادسبي. طبعا السردية تشتغل بالمتاحف يعني بصورة يعني أعمق وأبلغ باعتماد على المعروضات اللي موجودة ضمن المنظومة الداخلية للفضاء، وبالإضافة إلى منظومة المساجد. والسايلنس تايم اند سوليتيود لجوهان بالازما، و The Places of the Soul لكريستوفر داي. نروح على الشيء الآخر. مفردات الإطار النظري تم استدلالها من الدراسات السابقة منهجيا، لأن احنا لازم نتعرض إلى مجموعة دراسات سابقة حتى نستخلص من عندها بنية مفردات ممكن أن تفيد المصمم المعماري، اللي هي ماهية النص السردي. شنو طبيعة هذا النص؟ ما هي طبيعة هذا النص السردي اللي أنت تريد تتبناه كمصمم معماري؟ وما هي آليات السرد اللي أنت راح تشتغلها؟ راح تشتغل إزاحة، ديسبليسمنت، حذف، ترميز، ترويض، تبعير، يعني مجموعة تجريد، مجموعة آليات تشتغلها بها بعد آليات اشتغالي كمصمم معماري. يعني احنا نشتغل ضمن حقل الديزاين بروسيس، هاي العملية من ورا ما تكمل الدراسات المشابهة للمشروع إلى أن توصل للنص النهائي. هذا الزون مال شغلنا سرديا بالنسبة للجوامع. والسمات النص السردي ايش راح يطلع؟ شنو السمة مالته؟ بليغ، غامض، معاصر، جميل، يعني هذه هي السمات التي تسبق ذلك النص السردي. الكيس ستدي اللي اعتمدناه كان مشروع مسابقة من تصميمنا لمسجد خور دبي، كانت مسابقة من شركة إعمار سنة 2018. تبنى به المصمم، هاي الصورة الأولى. فلسفة تصميمية تقوم على إنتاج نص معماري معاصر يستثمر أدائية فكرية تتأسس على القراءة الروحانية للمصلي. لسردية منظومة الرموز المجسدة في التصورات الشكلية المعتمدة بالتصميم، وتعمد إلى تحفيز منظومة التشاعر الوجداني، يصير نوع من التشاعر الوجداني بين المصلي والله سبحانه وتعالى، وتعميق الشعور بالانغمار ضمن المكان. الانغمار هنا الانغمار الروحي اللي احنا نقصده. العناصر المعمارية الموظفة طبعا اللي هي التوبكس الخاصة بكل المساجد اللي تتضمن بيت الصلاة، المنارة، يعني فضاء الصلاة والمصلى نسميه، الواجهات، الفتحات، الأروقة، جدار القبلة والمحراب، بالإضافة للميضة وباقي الخدمات. تتسم بكونها تجسد رؤية للعلاقة بين المسجد والسياق المحيط أولا، وطبيعة التفاعل الروحاني والانغماس التخيلي، بما يؤسس لمنظومة التشاعر. نعبر على هاي قبل تم استبدال شكل القبة. لا اكو شيء قبلها دكتورة. ننزل. طبعا هنا تم عنصر بالضبط. تم استبدال المألوف عن التصميم الجوامع العادية. موجود عندنا منارة وقبة وصحن، يعني هاي من نشوفه نقول هذا جامع تمام كنوع وظيفي. الاستبدال القبة هنا بسكشن بنوع من التجريد لصف من المصلين اللي يمثل هنا بالامواج. سكشن للساجدين يعني
استبدل القبه هنا دكتور عباس، استبدل القبه بهذه اللي هي مثلها كانما المصلي اثناء حركه السجود.
حركه السجود بالضبط. طبعا لا وجود لاعمده داخليه ضمن فضاء الصحن حتى لا يقطع هذا السرديه الموجوده ضمن الفضاء. توظيف توظيف منظومه اناره صناعيه في الفضاء الداخلي لتجسم وتؤكد على الاحساس بهذه الانحناءات لطيات السقف، بالاضافه للاناره الجانبيه من هذه الطيات الموجوده لظهور واجساد المصلين اثناء حركه السجود. ما يميز العماره الاماراتيه وجود البرجيل، فانت تشتغل ضمن سياق العماره الاماراتيه فالمفروض انت تحاكي طبيعه ذلك السياق والذاكره الجمعيه حول تلك الثقافه. فاعتمدنا البرجيل باتجاهين، الاتجاه الاول صار هو الدعامات الاساسيه للستركتشر الرئيسي على الجانبين، بمعنى الاشاره لانه منظومه الثقافه الحاكمه والثقافه المرتبطه بالجذور العربيه الاصيله والاسلاميه هي كانما تشتغل دعامه ضد التوجهات المعاصره اللي تحاول ضمن منهج العولمه الاطاحه بثقافات وجذور المجتمعات الاصيله. والاتجاه الثاني اعتبار احد البراجيل هو البدي الهيكل البوزيتيف للمناره، فالمناره على 4 اتجاهات اشريه دكتوره هي عباره عن نيجاتيف. البروفايل مال المناره محفور ضمن البرجيل، يعني كانما محفوظ ضمن تشكيل البرجيل نفسه.
تم تضخيمه كانما
لا اعطيني بعد.
خلاص هو على الواجهه
اعتماد الحروف العربيه، لان الحرف العربي وهندسه الحرف العربي يعني يعيدنا الى تصورات مختلفه.
كانه السرد مكتوب، السرد حنشوفه مكتوب على واجهات.
يعني الشاعر عنده القدره على التعامل مع الحروف. مو كلنا شعراء، بس هذا القدره عنده القدره على استكشاف علاقه بين كلمه وكلمه اللي يأسس من عندها معنى يختلف عن الانسان العادي. يعني حسن المرواني غناها كاظم السائر من يقول ماتت بمحراب عينيك ابتهالاتي. يعني ماتت، احنا نقول هذا الموت موجود بالكلمات التداوليه والمحراب وكذا، هذه كلمات مألوفه، بس ان تشكل علاقه ومعنى جديد لايصال شعور انساني بين هاي ال4 كلمات هو هنا الابداع بالنسبه للشاعر. فاحنا نحاول هاي الصياغه والتشكيل لهذه العلاقات للمفردات الشعريه، نحاول او الادبيه نعكسها باتجاه العماره ونوجد مجموعه اشكال ننتج بها نص نطمح ان يكون بليغ وابداعي. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا دكتورة. تقديم رائع، يعطيكم الف عافيه. انا ادري ان time is I'm going to switch to English and Arabic now, since you have two presentations. We're just going to open the floor for some Q&A. إذا أحد حاب يسأل أي سؤال عن البرزنتيشنز الثلاثة أتأمل أن دليلة معنا بعد بالكونكشن. اللي يبي يسأل أي سؤال. If anyone has any question.
السلام عليكم. يعطيكم العافية جميعا. أنا اسمي هند العيسى، مهندسة في جامعة الإمام عبد الرحمن بن فيصل بالدمام، محاضر. حابة أشكر أخ رفيق صراحة يعني أهني فيكم زخم المصطلحات المعمارية اللي استخدمتوها، وككاتب يعني أحاول إني أحول مقالات معمارية من مصادر إنجليزية لين عربية، دائما أواجه صعوبات حتى ننقلها للجمهور العربي أكثر. سؤالي هو بالنسبة للسردية اللي طرحتوها، جاني إحساس إنها كانت من منظور المعماري أو المصمم نفسه. هل جربتوا يوم إنه مثلا أو فكرتوا إنك تقلبون شوي الاستراتيجية عندكم وتشوفون وجهة نظر المستخدم من العين حقته من أول ما يشوف المسجد وبعدين شلون يدخل، وكيف هذه الأمور؟ لأن إحنا كمهندسين أحيانا نحط فكرة معينة لكن المتلقي العين العامة ترجمها شيء ثاني، وتحس يعني يعطونا أفكار جديدة نقول أوكي ما كان قصدي كذي، بس لما أنتم ترجمتوها صارت في فكرة جديدة. فهل جربتوا أن أنتم تأخذون استراتيجي معينة تأخذون فيها اليوزر المستخدم كفكرة أساسية وتنطلق فيها التجربة من الأبروتش إلى الانتراكشن مع الفضاء المعماري نفسه، وتستلهمون منه هو السرد حتى تتحققون انه هل تم في تطابق ما بين السرد المختلف من عندكم؟
خلينا نصمم هناك عن وجهة نظر، لأن التصميم كان إلف.
شكرا يعطيكم
الله يسلمك.
شكرا على السؤال.
طبعا احنا نعرف ان المصمم هو اول محاور ومتلقي للنص الذي ينتجه، يعني انا دائما ابني على مفهوم حوار الذات. يعني انا من اشتغل الديزاين مالتي وحضرتك ايضا مشتغله بديزاين معين، فيصير سؤال وجواب يعني بينك وبين النص اللي انت تشتغلينه. هذا اول محاور، لان تتخيلين من تدخلين هذا الفضاء انت بعينك هو ما موجود. يعني هو ليش الايماجينيشن مالت المعماري عالي يكون يختلف عن باقي التخصصات. تتخيلين الفضاء كذا وتحبين تقولين انا دا استخدم هذا الديتيل هنا شو ينطي دلاله يعني هو المتلقي الاول هو المصمم طبعا، واللي هو مبني على تجارب سابقه ايضا. لذلك انا دائما اقول انه المعماري لازم يصير معرفته افقيه، يعرف شيء عن كل شيء. يعني تعرفين عن الطب، تعرفين عن الدين والمساجد والعماره الاسلاميه، تعرفين عن الفنادق كل الانواع الوظيفيه، تعرفين عن المراكز البحثيه. انا اكلفك كخطوط جويه سعوديه تعال سوي لي تريننج سنتر لتدريب الطيارين السعوديين والطواقم التضييف. هنا انا من كلفت من وزاره النقل خطوط الجويه العراقيه وقفت. يعني التريننج سنتر يعني يحتاج سيميليترز مثلا ومشبهات لتدريب الطيارين، احجامها اللي هي شغل بوينغ وايرباص ما اعرفها. قلت لهم انا اريد اشوف تريننج سنتر، يعني قالوا اشهر واحد موجود بماليزيا وبالتركش ايرلاينز، فاخذت جروب من عندهم طيارين ورحت. قلت لهم اريد اصعد من هذا حتى اعيش اللحظه واجربها حتى اعرف اصممها. يعني ما اقدر اشتغل في شيء ممكن يكون خطا ويكلف الكلاينت هوايه، لان ما عندي تجربه سابقه عنه. بس الجامعه وغيرها هاي كلها عندي تجارب سابقه، وانت اول قارئه كمتلقيه للنص المعماري. دائما سمون النص لا تسمون المشروع او النتاج، لان النص قابل للقراءه والتاويل. جاك دريدا يقول انه اذا فهم النص او قرأ اعلان لموته، يعني مات خلاص. في حين احنا لازم النص قابل للقراءه عبر الزمن. شلون هسه شكسبير لغايه اليوم يشتغلون مسرحياته، لغايه اليوم يبنون على ويفتهمون اشياء. هسه ما نروح الشكسبير، القران الكريم بعد 1000 سنه نلقى مفسرين ومؤولين لنصوص القران الكريم تختلف عن تفسيرنا وتاويلنا لهذا اليوم. تمام؟ عندنا هاي مثلا نور هي كمشكات لحد الان ما حد ما اتصور احد واصل للتفسير، متيقن هذا. ما حافظها بس اتذكر.
في أي أسئلة ثانية؟
My name is Mohammed Al-Ghalibi, an architect. This is my question for Dr. Yasser. First, thank you for the very provocative presentation.
Very nice.
And I think I have a lot of discussions we will discuss later on, but some just 2 points. The first point was that you took it, I think, from a very practical architectural way regarding this, the Sharia, or for example, that is yes, masjids or the mosques are mostly for men because of its, yeah, I mean the Sharia way. And that would answer the question of why the sizes. And in another way, you would find a lot of answers in your presentation in the last conference, where we were talking about the mosque architecture program, right? If we could analyze that, like the program and needs, because we are talking about spirituality, we're talking about the experience. So, a provocative question: should we experience the same experience? Like, should we, men and women, have the same experience in the mosque?
Thank you so much for this question, and I think it's a provocative question. I like provocative questions. There are 2 parts of your question. One of them is related to, it's in Sharia that the size of the mosque for women is imagined to be smaller than the one for men. One thing, this is a questionable point. You will find in Sharia, I'm not of course a specialist in that, but reading through the different jurisprudential kind of views, you will find that there are different views about this point. One of them, and one of architectural points, saying, yes, in Sharia, men are obliged to go to mosque, while it's more recommended for women because it's, of course, because of the lifestyle and the needs and so on. But the part that is ours is the architects. When we started to translate that immediately, that we will make it a smaller space, this led later to be a crowded, not a very good experience. Many women started not to go to the mosque because it's not a nice experience. I'm not going to have a bad day, a crowded day because of that. So this is some kind of architects started to kind of talk about this point. Again, my presentation is mainly wanted to ask questions and start exploring them differently. It's not a fact that the women praying space should be smaller. What if a future mosque, we have it bigger? What will happen? Will we have more women started to find that this is a place for us and we want to come? More children? It's not, I'm saying this is right or wrong, but the idea is we need to give the possibility. We need to open up the possibility and many things will happen. This is how the mosque have developed. From the Mosque of Prophet Muhammad, which is totally different than our mosque now. This means the mosque is an adaptable building, and we can rethink and change it. The other part, and if you can remind me a little bit, it was mainly about programmatic kind of idea and of the mosque and the experiential and kind of spiritual journey. Should we have the same kind of experience for both men and women? The question is not the same, but it needs to be comparable. It needs to be similar effect. For women, they need to feel that they are celebrated at the mosque. They feel the spatial experience. It doesn't need to be the exact one, but it needs to be comparable in quality. So they are equal in the design that you have given it to them as it is for men as well.
Just one more comment. I wouldn't agree with that, with what you said. And by the way, I don't like how the mezzanine stuff and so on. And I think that it's a wrong way of development that led us to see these kind of designs. But the only part that I would disagree in the presentation that subject of most, the women are having some kind of similar experience, but smaller one. They are the same, they are beside the man, and the partition is, because I've been there, the partition, there are partitions, lower partitions, they're seeing the mihrab wall, they're getting somehow, it's a good example, it's a good try. If you can say it's a good try. Yeah, but yeah, thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm just عندي تعقيب, or I just want to kind of go back to your provocative question. أولا thank you جميعا, شكرا جميعا على السرد صح. كنت أبي أول شيء I want to get back to your provocative question. I think the question should not be asked if what men and women should have the same experience. I think what the presentation was trying to question or challenge is why are we not designing for that other experience, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Because most of them, yes, the women's spaces are much smaller. Not many women go to the mosque, but then again, it goes back to the chicken or the egg, right? Do they not go because the space is not provided for them, or the experience is not, you know, as a lot of women would, as inviting as it is for a man to go, or as safe, right? For children, for women. And again, and then it goes back to this question of, you know, challenging what a mosque could be, and the flexibility and the adaptability of the mosque, where, you know, during the day, during the 5 times of prayer, yes, women will not go, but during Eid prayers or larger prayers, let's say Friday prayers, even in Ramadan, right? We have the Ashr al-Akhir. The amount of people, both men and women, that attend these prayers are, the numbers are much, much larger, right? And so it goes back to this idea of how can we design a pleasurable experience or a spiritual experience or a safe experience or any experience that allows for men, women, children, and others to experience a mosque, whether for spiritual reasons or even just for cultural and societal reasons. And so I'd like to thank you for challenging, bringing up these questions, because then we can, you know, talk about, you know, can we create flexible, adaptable mosques that can change and adapt to the different times, different needs of society. Thank you very much. It's not really a question, it's more of, you know, a commentary.
It's a feminist revolution here.
I'd like to add يعني زيادة على كلامك. So in your presentation, I don't know why, but I felt that you were focusing on the prayer as an activity. And when Mhandis Mohammed said that he prefers that, قلت لنا لما تفضل إن الميزانين يكون بالمصلى والتحية. It depends on the type of activities that are being held in the mosque. So for us females in the prayer area, we don't only pray. We have حلقة in the masjid, tahfir. And we also, in Ramadan, we do tahajjud between Taraweeh and Qiyam. And some people do it until Fajr prayer. And these activities, although they're not as primary as the prayer itself, but people should put them in consideration. So for me, as a hijabi person or as a female who wants to do, for example, tahajjud, I would prefer for having some privacy, because while reading, أحيانا وأنا قاعدة أقرأ قرآن ولا أقرأ تفسير whatever ألقي حجابي فأحس إنه أوكي عادي أنا مرتاحة الحين. Regarding the kids' experience, يعني بس الحمد لله يعني تطور شوية مع الزمن. في بعض المساجد بس انها لا تظل يعني الحين لا تزال انها تعتبر مثالي. تفهم عربي؟
انا بفهم
اوكي تمام. في بعض المساجد يحطون مثلا يكون في فصل تام ما بين قاعة الصلاة النسائية وما بين الحضانة حق الأطفال، يكون في مسؤولة معينة حاطينها عشان تشرف على الأطفال تأكد إنهم ما يضرون مع الأطفال. وفي قاعة أمهات مع أطفال، وفي مساجد تخصص زي القاعة هذه تكون ملحقة بالمصلى بس بينها مو هو حتى باب ستارة، فكانت بالبداية مزعجة بس بعد مع الوقت يعني قاعد تتطور مع الزمن. It's a slow design process أو according للفيدباك اللي قاعدين ياخذونه من اليوزرز. حتى again في بعض المساجد واجد تشكوا من الكراسي البلاستيك حتى عشان لما تكون الصفوف لازم تكون على نفس الاستقامة. أتوقع نفس الشيء عند الرجال. فمن بعد هذا يعني أحس هم أخذوا the process of human centered design and then they try to يعني develop the process أو experience حق
design versus behavior.
شكرا لكم.
أنا بس آخر سؤال أساس إن and you're more than welcome to stay if you would like to, but there's a lunch break for those of you who feel like they need some nourishment. So I'm gonna just like have the last question here, but please then feel free if you. But we don't want you to keep you. أنت ليه وقت
معكم معمارية مريم الشواء. طبعا تعقيبا زيادة على the same issue. أول شيء thank you for your presentation and for dropping the light on this matter because it's وايد يعني متغاضينها أو خصوصا being a female user of the mosque. وايد رحت مساجد ويعني ودي أروح صب رياي لأنهم عندهم القبة عندهم this like experience and it's like يعني محترة إن they have this experience and we have this like low ceiling وبس يلا صلوا وطلعوا and that stairs the stairs مشكلة وايد حتى برمضان خصوصا. ف okay I will be like quick. فمثلا يعني أنت قلت وايد this is a provocative subject and we will make up solutions in our minds. For example بالحرم المكي it's not a mosque per se but it's a place of worship. يعني this is the main worship of Muslims and it's not segregated. بس بالصلاة يعني هم عارفين هم الحريم ورا والرجال قدام يعني by themselves they organize themselves وهم يقدرون عندهم مكان استراحة أو مكان للصلاة داخل اللي هو inside the column area. So يعني وايد there's less to talk about but I just wanted to say this small comment and وإن شاء الله تزيد التوعية على هالشيء و all the new architects who are designing mosques in the future they would consider this matter. Thank you.
Can I just give
Yes,
a
you
comment
can.
on that?
Honestly, it's up to you. I just want to make sure, like I'm sure there's like 3 other questions, and I just want to make sure that we don't keep anyone away from eating. If you're not hungry, you can stay as long as you want. I'll leave. Let's keep moving.
I'll just give a very brief comment on both kind of last 2 questions. One of them is related to the mosque started to develop like that children area and so on. But you will notice that the development is coming from the management, not from the architect point of view. When we usually try to design the mosque, we think that it's a very easy brief. It's just a multi-purpose hall and just bring people to it. While what you're saying and all what you've said say that this is a very complex project. And we always kind of work with this project as an easy one. How you can manage that, I want to have it fully open, unsegregated, but I also have my privacy. How it can be controlled, this is a very complex architectural question.
That's the challenge for the architect.
That's a design.
Yes.
Exactly, it's not a management thing. We need, that's why it's another kind of mindset that we need to start to think about the mosque through it as it's a complex building. And we have very complex user needs, and it's not just an open hole with a mezzanine on the top. The other thing, especially about the women praying space, it's very hard to get data. Yesterday, in the kind of the trip in the Grand Mosque, I wanted to go to see the women praying space. I haven't been in a women praying space.
Yeah. We are the same.
Vice versa.
We want to.
أنا بغيت أروح صوب الرجال من كثر ما إني
A
مشتاقة.
key thing,
It's
we don't have
beautiful.
enough data to design a women praying space if I haven't been in one. So that's why I think this kind of put the ball now in the side of the female users until it's open to us to see it. It's the responsibility of female users to start to document how's the experience inside. We get some primary data that we can build on so we can design a better and proper space. Thank you so much, and sorry for the kind of very extended talk.
إيه، تفضل. بقول معاك ولا بتكلم؟